Welcome to Dose with Grace. I hope you're doing well and taking very good care of yourself. We are doing the series of all the chapters in sequence of Bhagavad Gita, and I'm finding it really a beautiful learning experience as I'm reading these chapters with the purpose of sharing it on this YouTube platform. It's giving me tremendous learning to understand that how much more I'm able to absorb from each chapter when I'm reading it from the purpose of thoroughly understanding it to be able to give my sharing about the chapter. As much as possible, I'm also reading the shlokas in Hindi. So, for those who fully understand Hindi, they can get the meaning as direct as it is. And for those, the purpose of this whole platform was to bring Bhagavad Gita into our everyday life because it's very practical, it's very useful, and it helps us through all the phases of our life. And I personally have benefited so much from it, and I wanted to share the same benefit that I have received and I'm continuing to with all of you all, Dose with Grace family. So that's the intention, and let's hope that it reaches as much to you as much as my pure intention in creating these videos. So without much ado, let's start this video with the chanting of these very powerful, blissful, and divine mantras. Today is also the Monday, and it's Shiva's day. And for all those who are fasting, Om Namah Shivaya. And tomorrow is Hanuman Jayanti. Not really Jayanti, Hanuman the Janam Divas. So for all those who are celebrating Hanuman Janam Divas, आप सबको मेरी श्री हनुमान जी के जन्मदिन की बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ कल के लिए. So let's start today's video with these chanting of these Maha Mantras. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you for joining back. As in our last video, we have learned about the chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, which talks about Karma Sannyas Yoga. What is sannyas? What is Nishkam Karma Yoga? And how to achieve and integrate the both into our lives to live a very fulfilling, a very nourishing and very purposeful life where we evolve ourselves into much higher beings, and we are able to find that fulfillment which is not just temporary but which is eternal. The Sachidanand, which means the happiness or the bliss that comes from the truth, knowledge of truth, and accomplishing our tasks by dovetailing them or by dedicating them to the Brahman, the consciousness, or our own highest self. So that was the learning from last chapter, but it is like though it is very beautifully explained in that chapter, so I would request you, all those who are starting for the first time on listening to these videos, please go back to the previous videos from chapter 1 to chapter 5 until now. And also there is before I started on the chapters, I had also shared a little bit on my personal understanding and my personal journey on why and who should read Bhagavad Gita. So I would highly encourage all of you to buy this book. If you are fluent in Hindi, you can buy it in Hindi. If you're fluent in English, it's also available in English version, and I mean it's translated in many other versions. So you can choose the version that you find most easiest to relate to, and please read it as a book, and you will realize that how useful it is to um, help you mitigate through different phases of your life in the right knowledge and with the peace in your heart, knowing that the knowledge that is conveyed through Bhagavad Gita is not meant for a particular religion, is not meant for a particular age group or a state of person. It is an absolute knowledge, and the test of absolute knowledge is that it stands the test of time, it stands the test of any situation, and it doesn't become invalid in different circumstances. It holds true in all circumstances and in all times. Shashwat or absolute. So let's start the 6th chapter. The 6th chapter is called Atma Sanyam Yoga. Now, Atma Sanyam Yoga, as the word suggests, how to bring Sanyam means to bring a sense of tranquility, a sense of equanimity inside anything. So Sanyam means that I have, suppose someone has a lot of patience and someone has a lot of endurance without reacting or without changing their current state, they can withstand it. And Atma means Atma or self, and Yog means it's a practice to reach your highest self. So let's start with the 6th chapter with the blessings of Almighty, and I hope I'm able to share with you the beautiful understanding and such a meaningful chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is the chapter 6th. So the first shloka of 6th chapter says, उसके उपरांत श्री कृष्ण महाराज बोले, हे अर्जुन, जो पुरुष कर्म के फल को ना चाहता हुआ करने योग्य कर्म करता है वह सन्यासी और योगी है, और केवल अग्नि को त्यागने वाला सन्यासी योगी नहीं है, तथा केवल क्रियाओं को त्यागने वाला भी सन्यासी योगी नहीं है. So this we have, as much as the 5th chapter has very clearly explained what is not sannyas, running away from our duties, running away from our everyday actions, or even just thinking from that I will sit in one place and not do anything, that means I'm tyagi. That is not what Sri Krishna is referring to as sannyas. He in fact says, not attaching your desire to the fruits of your work is and doing the right actions. Now how to do right actions, then you need to have Gyan Yoga. So that is why first there comes the Gyan Yoga, then comes the Nishkam Karm Yoga. With that knowledge, with that Gyan that he gives of Atma, we learn to do Nishkam Karm Yoga, and through Nishkam Karm Yoga we become sannyasi, which means we are not attaching ourselves to the doership of all of our good actions or the correct actions, nor we are attaching any desires to the fulfillment or having any expectations or ill will and comparisons with people around us. इसीलिए है अर्जुन, जिसको संन्यास ऐसा कहते हैं उसी को तू योग जान. So now here Krishna is explaining yoga. So he is explaining yoga is that kind of sannyas which we achieve by fully investing ourselves or fully dwelling into the deep knowledge of Atman, knowing that we are not just this body, this the outer identity that we carry with ourselves, because if you really see practically, this identity changes throughout our life. No identity we can withhold to throughout our life. And we don't have just one identity, we have so many identities. Right now, if I ask you to take a pen and a paper and ask you to write down who am I, and write down as many things that come to your mind that define you. You may start with your name, your parentage, your place of birth, your city, your family, your interests, your profession, your education. So see, already in the beginning itself, there are 7 to 8 things that we can attach ourselves to. We have 7 to 8 identities, and then it goes multifold as we talk about our pursuits, as we talk about our talents, as we talk about our work. So and our roles in society. So there are so many identities we can attach to, but knowing that deep inside the true identity, all these identities will change with time, or they will finish with time, and the greatest identity, that our own name and our body and flesh, will end with our death. But there is one thing that continues, that's a continuum throughout life, and that is throughout the journey of our eternal existence, and that is Atma. And knowing that is called Sankhya Yoga, which is there in the chapter 2 in a very detailed form. Having invested in that knowledge, if we do the Karma Yoga, which is the next chapter, the chapter 3, the Karma Yoga is also divided into Sakam Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, and then followed by, in the following chapter, how Krishna has explained how Nishkam Karma Yoga actually leads you to sannyas, which means not having any personal desires, personal identity attached to anything that we are doing in this world, or not falling prey to these vacillations of emotions where we are so happy when good things are going on according to everyone, and we are so sad when bad things are happening to us according to others. So remaining in Samta Bhav is called Yoga, and that is what is also sannyas. समतक बुद्धि रूप योग में आरूढ़ होने की इच्छा वाले मननशील पुरुष के लिए योग की प्राप्ति में निष्काम भाव से कर्म करना ही हेतु कहा है, और योगारूढ़ हो जाने पर उस योगारूढ़ पुरुष के लिए सर्व संकल्पों का अभाव ही कल्याण में हेतु कहा है। जिस काल में ना तो इंद्रियों के भोगों में आसक्त होता है, ना ही कर्मों में आसक्त होता है, उस काल में सर्व संकल्पों का त्यागी पुरुष योगारूढ़ कहा जाता है। So clearly there are three qualities of a person who's called who is considered to be a person who is a yogi. Number one, that you are not attached to the attractions or the aversions created by our 5 senses. So usko bhogne mein asakt means to be in pursuit of achieving or running towards things that are created, that are that fascinates us through our 5 senses. Asakt means attachment. Nahi karmo mein. Now sometimes when we do certain things, we become too attached to that. Now doing our work with great diligence, enthusiasm, and without any laziness is one thing, but getting too attached to our work that it becomes more like an obsession is what is also not a path of a yogi. So doing our karma, doing the right karma, doing it without any personal attachment to it, doing it as our dharma, as our duty, and doing it with great sense of with a great sense of devotion and great sense of honesty and dedication. And one who has given up on different Sankalp is something like when we do something, we always want wish an end result. That is called sankalp. That I am taking one sankalpa. I will do this for these many days because I want to achieve something. So Shri Krishna says, उस काल में सर्व संकल्पों का त्यागी, getting over this desire to achieve something as the end road towards all of this, becoming detached from the attachments of your senses, becoming detached from your own work and not attaching your own doership to that work, then not attaching any desire of result as a result of doing these two things. That person is called as yogi. यह योगरूढ़ता कल्याण में हेतु कही है, इसलिए मनुष्य को चाहिए कि वह अपने द्वारा अपने संसार समुद्र से उतार करे और अपनी आत्मा को अधोगति में ना पहुंचाए, क्योंकि ये जीवात्मा आप ही तो अपना मित्र है और आप ही अपना शत्रु है, अर्थात कोई दूसरा शत्रु या मित्र नहीं है। उस जीवात्मा का तो वह आप ही मित्र है कि जिस जीवात्मा मन और इंद्रियां सहित शरीर जीता हुआ है, और जिसका मन और इंद्रियां सहित शरीर नहीं जीता गया है, वह आप ही शत्रु के सदृश शत्रुता में बरतता है। So like in last chapter, Shri Krishna has explained to Arjun that it is not some god who takes all your punyas or good work and then rewards you, or takes all your bad work, judges and punishes you. It is very clearly said in the previous chapter that कर्म ही कर्मों में बरतते हैं, and he says मैं ना तुम्हारे सुकर्मों को ना ही कुकर्मों को भोगता हूँ. So God is not taking responsibility of our good or bad deeds, or in taking responsibility of our punishments or rewards. It is our own karmas that translate into the next actions, and those actions then create circumstances for us or the consequences for us which we have to face. They can be good, they can be bad. So our karmas create that cycle what we go through. And here clearly it is again explained by Krishna by saying that we are our own friend and we are our own enemy. There is no external friend or an enemy in our lives. We are our friends when we are able to be in control of our senses and we are able to do our duties in the righteous way and live a slightly detached life from our own self-identity, and knowing that we are truly an Atma who's living a material life. Whereas if we live on the other way, which is where we get affected by things around us and we attach too much ourselves to our identity of success, failure, rise and fall, happiness and sorrow, good times, bad times, achievements or non-achievements, or too many people loving us, not too many people loving us. So these are all external things, and they are also attached to an identity which is not permanent at all. So these are anyway very transient things, and for a transient phase of our life, within that transient time that we are existing as a human being, this birth, these things anyway are very transient. So they are within the journey of Atma insignificant. So the one who lives, but one who lives very attached to these or very affected by these is his own enemy, and the one who doesn't is his own friend. हे अर्जुन, सर्दी गर्मी और सुख दुख आदि में तथा मान और अपमान में जिसके अंतकरण की वृत्तियां अच्छी प्रकार शांत हैं अर्थात विकार रहित हैं, ऐसे स्वाधीन आत्मा वाले पुरुष के ज्ञान में सच्चिदानंदन परमात्मा सम्यक प्रकार से स्थित है, अर्थात उसके ज्ञान में परमात्मा के सिवाय अन्य कुछ है ही नहीं. Now see, there are seasons that will change. You can be very fond of, like I'm personally fond of autumn, which is a transition season. So I may be very happy during the month of autumn and I'm really enjoying. Or if someone loves winters, they'll be very happy, but they'll be extremely unhappy and uncomfortable during summers because that's the opposite kind of season. Similarly, if we are happy, we are really um, uh, we are in a happy state of life where everything is going for us, we are happy. But if things are not going for us, are not in our favor, we become sad. um, when we are getting a lot of reputation and position in society, we become happy. But when we feel when we lose that, or we feel humiliation, then we become sad. um, Somebody who has, in these extreme situations, whether it is, he's giving example of a person physical, like having heat or cold, um, mental or feelings wise, like feeling happy or sad, and then much deeper ego related, where we are under having a lot of reputation or we lose our reputation. In all these states, if some one person, if that person who remains completely at ease and completely peaceful, such people, such person has actually grown over all of their ritis, all of their faults, because these are faults of mind, heart, or sometimes of our intelligence, that we think, okay, this is bad, so I'm feeling low about it. Okay, this is great, so I feel very high about myself, and that creates ego. So, if someone is able to remain same under these circumstances, that person is actually being able to conquer all the evils of material life. And in that person's knowledge, in that person's understanding, lies the godliness. Sachidanandan Paramatma is always present, is like present in that person's intelligence or in knowledge, just like there are red blood cells in our bloodstreams. It's like fully integrated. ज्ञान विज्ञान से तृप्त है अंतकरण जिसका, तथा विकार रहित है स्थिति जिसकी, और अच्छी प्रकार जीती हुई हैं इंद्रियां जिसकी, तथा समान है मिट्टी पत्थर और स्वर्ण जिसके, वह योगी युक्त अर्थात भगवत की प्राप्ति वाला है, ऐसा कहा जाता है. Such person will actually not be able to differentiate much between mud, sand, or a diamond. So, to say it in a way, the interpretation is that they really don't see much difference between someone who has a lot of name and fame. They don't how they, what is their acharan, what is their behavior in the outer world. Their behavior is that they are same with everyone. Their behavior is same with everyone, and at a very deep level, they really don't see one person better than the other. They really don't see one person higher than the other. Even someone who is uh, performing or living life in a way which is very derogatory, they actually think that he is lacking that wisdom. So, the day that wisdom, that knowledge, that understanding of life will come into this person will be as evolved as those who are living a very, let's say, a very righteous life. So, first of all, the barrier of who's more wealthy, who's less wealthy, should I make friends with this person who has better contact, all that doesn't come in that person. Their behavior is same with everyone, and it is irrespective of the condition or the status of the other person, because they live in their own swabhav and in the true understanding that everyone is equal and there is no difference between them and the other person. Even though there may be outer differences, but deep down there is totally no difference between anyone, and everyone is equal. जो पुरुष सहृद मित्र वैरी उदासीन मध्यस्थ द्वेषी और बंधुगण तथा धर्मात्माओं में और पापियों में भी समान भाव वाला है, वह अति श्रेष्ठ है. सो सच पीपल will not really even make a difference between a friend, an enemy, somebody who doesn't like them, somebody who really loves them, somebody who is very uh, someone who is totally unbiased, very fair, or and they don't make difference between someone who is against them or who is in favor of them, someone who is very spiritually enlightened and someone who is totally not bothered about, who doesn't believe in God. They just feel everyone is same. इसीलिए उचित है कि जिसका मन और इंद्रियों सहित शरीर जीता हुआ है, ऐसा वासना रहित और संग्रह रहित योगी अकेला ही एकांत स्थान में स्थित हुआ निरंतर आत्मा को परमेश्वर के ध्यान में लगावे. So here Krishna says that such a person who has achieved this level of understanding of life and therefore treats people completely equally, such a person should take some time out and situate themselves in peaceful, isolated place, and so that they are able to practice their whatever form they want to remember God. It could be meditation, it could be just sitting and remembering God. So such people should invest that time alone and in isolation with themselves. शुद्ध भूमि में कुशा मृगशाला और रस्त हैं, उपरोक्त ऐसी अपने आप को अति आसन को नाति ऊंचा और नाति नीचा स्थिर स्थापन करके, और उस आसन पर बैठकर तथा मन को एकाग्र करके चित्त और इंद्रियों की क्रिया को वश में किया हुआ अंतकरण की शुद्धि के लिए योग का अभ्यास करें. Now here, because this chapter is about Atma Sanyam Yoga, why this chapter I'm saying is so important and so wonderful is because all of us want to have that inner peace. All of us are running towards, whether you're in an excellent space in your life right now, health wise, financially, emotionally, psychologically, family wise, even if you're in your best state, you never know when that state can get disturbed with a slight curveball that can come in your life. Or even if when you're in that state, it is always, there is something that is going on that is triggering you either to remain at that position you're fighting so hard, or to go to the next level. You're always struggling to make the ends meet. There is always a little bit of urgency, or there's a little bit of ambition in all of us that keeps us slightly restless. How to achieve that state, and it may vary from one person to another. Some can be very, very restless and some can be slightly. Now, how to achieve that state of permanent bliss in which when we are doing things in our lives also, and whatever state we are in, whatever external situation we are in, deep inside we are completely at ease and peaceful. So here Krishna is explaining how we should isolate ourselves for some time and give ourselves a little time to invest in yoga. And for all those people who are probably attending meditation classes, going for mindfulness sessions, are trying to take some kind of therapy, either in the form of yoga or in the form of listening to bhajans and all of that, here in Bhagavad Gita's chapter 6 and shloka number 12, Sri Krishna has 11 and 12, Sri Krishna has completely made you understand how to practice yoga. So he says, sit on a clean surface, and you can put a small little mat which is simply made of grass or simple organic material, and keep that asana neither too high. Keep your seat not too high, not too low. The thing that you put under your on which you sit should not be too high, not too low. So what does it signify? In our life, there are deeper meanings to what Krishna has said. Never put yourself too high or too low. Always keep yourself at a decent level. And that is called middle path. And here, by physically making sure you don't sit too high or too low, you are always maintaining a middle path. You're always in a very leveled space. Then he says, once you sit on that, sit with your mind completely within yourself, and all your five senses, whatever activity they are doing, try to keep them still to yourself. And now in the next shloka he explains vidhi. Vidhi means the right way to do it. The method for practicing yoga is to keep your head, neck and काया, सिर और ग्रीवा को समान और अचल धारण किए हुए दृढ़ होकर अपनी नासिका के अग्रभाग को देखकर अन्य दिशाओं को ना देखता हुआ और ब्रह्मचर्य में व्रत में स्थित रहता हुआ भय रहित तथा अच्छी प्रकार शांत अंतकरण वाला और सावधान होकर मन को वश में कर मेरे में लगे हुए चित्त वाला और मेरे परायण हो स्थित होवे. Very simply, it's clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita that you can sit straight with your body, your back, your body, your neck and your face and your tongue, not up, not down, straight, and then by looking in the direction which is right in front of the nose, we can control our thoughts and our body towards a very still position. And then trying to remember God, trying to remember your higher self, or trying to remember whoever you believe in is the way to perform yoga. इस प्रकार आत्मा को निरंतर परमेश्वर के स्वरूप में लगाता हुआ स्वाधीन मन वाला योगी मेरे में स्थिति रूप परमानंद पराकाष्ठा वाली शांति को प्राप्त होता है. Through this we can make ourselves swadhin, so we become under our own influence rather than coming under the influence of things that we see, hear, taste, touch or feel. We come under the influence of our own Atma. We come under the influence of our inner learning and inner knowing. And that is that learning, that swadhinta, that self-restraint or self-resolve is what gives us the inner peace, and that is what is called as योग. परंतु हे अर्जुन, ये योग ना तो बहुत खाने वाले का सिद्ध होता है, ना बिल्कुल ना खाने वाले का, तथा ना अति शयन करने वाले स्वभाव का और ना ही अत्यंत जागने वाले का ही सिद्ध होता है. ये दुखों का नाश करने वाले योग तो यथा योग आहार और विहार करने वाला तथा कर्मों में यथा योग्य चेष्टा करने वाला तथा यथा योग्य शयन करने वाला तथा जागने वाला का ही सिद्ध होता है. So here Shri Krishna is saying that this yoga is only possible for someone who doesn't live in extremes, someone who doesn't eat too much or eat too little, doesn't sleep too much or doesn't sleep too little, doesn't do too much activity or doesn't do too little. So if we do everything in balance, then that person is in that condition to rather practice this yoga that has been explained by Shri Krishna. So everywhere, if you really see, from the time Shri Krishna is explaining about yoga, it is all about the middle, about being right in the middle. It's not about going to one extreme, giving up on things. It's about doing the right amount of action and taking right amount of actions at the right time, taking right amount of rest, taking right amount of nutrition, taking the right amount of stress. So everything has to be not either no, none or all principle. It has to be a very balanced approach. That is why yoga is very, very useful in creating that sense of tranquility and creating that sense of self-control. And this is a very step-by-step procedure Shri Krishna is explaining. So for all of you who have been wanting to achieve that permanent state of balance and stillness and peace within yourself, please follow these things, and these really, really work. I have applied it in my life and it really works. इस प्रकार योग के अभ्यास से अत्यंत वश में किया हुआ चित्त जिस काल में परमात्मा को ही भली प्रकार स्थित हो जाता है, उस काल में संपूर्ण कामनाओं से सप्रहार रहित हुआ पुरुष योग युक्त ऐसा कहा जाता है। जिस प्रकार वायु रहित स्थान में स्थित दीपक चलायमान नहीं होता, वैसे ही उपमा परमात्मा के ध्यान में लगे हुए योगी के जीते हुए चित्त की कही गई है। So just like if you put a lamp in a place where there is no wind blowing, there is air but there is no wind blowing, so the lamp will not get fumbled. It will stay very still and it will give a very steady light. Similarly, when we practice this type of yoga, meditation or concentrating on self, we can also say dwelling on inner self, that gives that sense of stillness, which is going to be similar to a lamp which is kept unaffected and gives a continuous sense of light and beam when it is not in the turbulent winds. So these turbulent winds are probably really a simile to the situations in our life. But if we keep ourselves fully into yoga, then anything around us doesn't really change that state of permanent sense of light within ourselves. हे अर्जुन, जिस अवस्था में योग के अभ्यास से निरुद्ध हुआ चित्त उपराम हो जाता है और जिस अवस्था में परमेश्वर के ध्यान से शुद्ध हुई सूक्ष्म बुद्धि द्वारा परमात्मा को साक्षात करता हुआ सच्चिदानंदन परमात्मा में ही संतुष्ट होता है तथा इंद्रियों से अतीत केवल शुद्ध हुई सूक्ष्म बुद्धि द्वारा ग्रहण करने योग्य जो अत्यंत आनंद है, उसको जिस अवस्था में अनुभव करता है और जिस अवस्था में स्थित हुआ ये योगी भगवत रूप से नहीं चलायमान होता है और परमेश्वर की प्रतिरूप जिस लाभ को प्राप्त होकर उससे अधिक दूसरा कोई भी लाभ नहीं मानता है और भगवत प्राप्ति रूप जिस अवस्था में स्थित हुआ योगी बड़े भारी दुख से भी चलायमान नहीं होता है. So here Krishna is explaining in next 3 shlokas what benefit it gives to someone who practices this kind of a yoga. So the benefits are that this person feels an eternal sense of well-being. There's an eternal sense of pleasantness that is felt by such a person. It's not happiness, because happiness is very short-lived, but there is an eternal sense of pleasantness which is deep inside, and therefore it may not be visible in the form of laughter or excitement or something, but it will be a sense of steadiness around this person. They're very light in their being. Such people are generally are not their faith is never shaken. They have a sense of pleasantness. 2, their faith is never shaken. At all times, in all circumstances and in all stages of their life, they are very, very much rooted into their faith, and as much rooted into their faith as they are in their good times. So the vacillation of external circumstances or the difference of external circumstances neither increase or decrease their sense of devotion or faith towards their inner knowing of higher self. So you can say that they're very connected, they're fully connected to their higher self, and because of which their temperament, their behavior, their lifestyle is very peaceful and it's very pleasing under all circumstances. It is not much different as they go through different phases of life. And third, that they don't get too excited or not too worried on the external benefits or losses. So and they're not very much keen or dwelling into them. So if somebody will appreciate or congratulate them on something that they have achieved, it is not much of a importance to them, though they are happy to receive that praise and all, but they don't attach much importance to those things except for the thing that they are progressing in their sense of overall well-being and peace, which means they are connected completely to their inner self or to their higher self. जो उस दुख रूप संसार के संयोग से रहित है तथा जिसका नाम योग है. So what is योग? योग is the suffering and misery of the world that exists around us, the material world that exists around us, getting being free from that is called योग. उसको जानना चाहिए. वह योग ना उकताए हुए चित्त से अर्थात तत्पर हुए चित्त से निश्चय पूर्वक करना कर्तव्य है. So here Krishna says to practice that yoga, you don't have to be excited, you don't have to be tatpar, as in you don't have to be like I want to go for it. With that kind of mindset, you can never achieve yoga. इसीलिए मनुष्य को चाहिए कि संकल्प से उत्पन्न होने वाली संपूर्ण कामनाओं को निषेधता से अर्थात वासना और आसक्ति रहित त्याग कर और मन के द्वारा इंद्रियों के समुदाय को सब ओर से अच्छी प्रकार से वश में करके कर्म से अभ्यास करता हुआ उपरामता को प्राप्त हुए तथा धैर्य युक्त बुद्धि वाला मन को परमात्मा में स्थिर कर परमात्मा के सिवाय कुछ भी ना चिंता करे. Now here I would like to make a point. Here Shri Krishna is telling that to fully learn yoga, one has to practice slowly. It will not come immediately. Just like attachment is a practice, similarly detachment is also a practice. It takes a while for us to be attached to things. Similarly, it takes a while for us to be detached to things. But here in this particular shloka, Shri Krishna is saying that detaching ourselves from desires and detaching ourselves from the end result, asking God for things, and of course the indulgence of our senses, doing it kram means slowly practicing it until, and with dharya, with patience, and buddhi, with intelligence, using our intelligence to learn more and more about it, and using our patience to practice more and more what we have learned. Here I would like to make a point that in this world we hear and we teach everybody around us about ask God, ask for things. When you pray, ask for something, and that is also called sankalpa. Very clearly I would like to clarify here that in Bhagavad Gita it is categorically said, do not do it. So if you go to temple, please just pray to God and thank God for whatever God is bringing to you. Good, bad, ugly, it is our very narrow-minded thinking to not understand that everything that is happening in our life is basically done by us, and the consequences of our cycle of karma, and the higher self is always there to provide wisdom and knowledge for us to be aware of that. It is not interfering in our whole cycle of karma. However, it can give us wisdom and enlighten us to break that cycle of, if we are going through bad karma, to break that cycle through buddhi, through cleansing our minds and cleansing our intelligence by making it aligned to the higher purpose, which is always to our benefit. Other than that, there should be no other purpose to pray to God. There should be no strictly a purpose to pray to God to ask for something. And I have repeatedly also been told in my life to ask God for something at times when things have not been going well. And honestly speaking, it is through Bhagavad Gita I have learned. But deep down inside me, also I had this understanding which was completely unshaken that I couldn't ask God for anything. And therefore I would like to share this with all of you, that please do not fall into this trap of praying to God and asking God for, even if it is asking for better results, asking for peace. If you have to do anything, if you have to do anything for prayer, the only thing we should do is to ask God, is to pray to God and thank God for giving us this wisdom to be able to pray to God, because that prayer itself is self illuminating. Praying to our higher selves, praying to God, being in our higher self is the best gift we can get. And that is what is the purpose of prayer. There is nothing else that is to be traded with our prayers, with anything that we do as karma kanda or dakshina or anything. Please don't do it to ask God for anything, because that is, to my understanding, doesn't work and is not right. And clearly in Bhagavad Gita, many places you have seen, Krishna has clearly said, sankalpon ko tyag dein. Get rid of this habit of asking and wanting a certain end result, a certain desired end result. Please get over it, and that is called yoga. परंतु जिसका मन वश में नहीं हुआ हो, उसको चाहिए कि वह यह स्थिर ना रहने वाला और चंचल मन जिस जिस कारण से सांसारिक पदार्थों में विचरता है, उसको रोककर बारंबार परमात्मा में निरोध करे. So when we sit and we sit to remember God, maybe it is for 5 minutes, you do that in a day, or 10 minutes, or you want to sit and just chant the name. If too many thoughts come in mind, which is very normal, because mind is very, very like a monkey. We say it's a monkey mind. There is no harm, there is nothing wrong with it. But as Bhagavad Gita also says, let what you need to do is to bring your mind back to what you were doing. If you were doing chanting, back to it. If you were just concentrating on your breathing, back to it. So just do. This is called abhyas. This is called practice. That every time the mind wanders, bring it back. Every time the mind wanders, bring it back. And slowly you will realize that you will progress in your practice. क्योंकि जिसका मन अच्छी प्रकार से शांत है और जो पाप से रहित है और जिसका रजोगुण शांत हो गया है, ऐसे इस सच्चिदानंदन ब्रह्म के साथ एकाभिभाव हुए योगी को अति उत्तम आनंद प्राप्त होता है. Generally, when we are not able to concentrate, or our mind is wavering too much, it happens little with everyone, but generally when it is happening too much, when it means we have too much of rajogun in us. And the only way to balance out the rajogun is to bring our awareness back to self, bring our awareness back to breath, bring our awareness back to the chanting of the mantras. So that way we are able to go more into sattva mode, and therefore these are the processes that are laid down even in Bhagavad Gita for practicing yoga. वह पाप रहित योगी इस प्रकार निरंतर आत्मा को परमात्मा में लगाता हुआ सुखपूर्वक परम ब्रह्म परमात्मा की परम प्राप्ति रूप अनंत आनंद को अनुभव करता है. हे अर्जुन, सर्वव्यापी अनंत चेतन में एकावी भाव से स्थिति रूप योग से युक्त हुए आत्मा वाले तथा सब में समभाव से देखने वाले योगी आत्मा को संपूर्ण भूतों में बर्फ में जल के सदृश व्यापक देखता है और संपूर्ण भूतों को आत्मा में देखता है. अर्थात जैसे स्वप्न में जागा हुआ पुरुष स्वप्न के संसार को अपने अंतर्गत संकल्प के आधार देखता है, वैसे ही वह पुरुष संपूर्ण भूतों को अपने सर्वव्यापी अनंत चेतन आत्मा के अंतर्गत संकल्प के आधार देखता है. So here, as we progress in yoga, as we progress in dwelling deep into our own consciousness, there is so much clarity that comes to mind. Very simple example I will give you. As I practice chanting, I practice silence, and I'm realizing that it sharpens your mind so much that there is a quick understanding of what decision to take. One, your decision making becomes very crisp and very, very sharp. You are able to find the truth in the whole. For example, there is something going on and you around you, a discussion going on, and you are part of that discussion, and you're able to quickly decipher um, with such ultimate level of clarity and precision, not only what is truth in it, but also you're able to find out a solution and give it in a way that is so crystal clear with minimum words and with such clarity. And I do experience this because I practice chanting and I practice silence, and also a little bit of dhyan. And I'm telling you from my personal experience, if you do that, even if you start with, say, the easiest form is depends on how you which form is easier for you. Mantra chanting also can bring you into a complete deep meditation. Complete silence can take you into deep meditation, or just practicing on a certain thought can take you deep into very deep contemplation and meditation. But all of these are bound to take you deep into your inner consciousness, your higher selves, and through that comes answers which are very rich, and they are trikal darshi. Those answers are trikal darshi, in the sense those answers, or those that wisdom is the wisdom that comes from pure consciousness. And that wisdom is because pure consciousness can see through, is there in all three times, the past, present and future. That's why it's called the trikaldarshi wisdom. So mostly those answers which are like, they are like epiphany, they are very beneficial, they make sense completely, and they kind of help you erase a lot of old patterns too. So this is a personal sharing I would like to add here, that this particular shloka explains that such people are able to see water in ice, and they are able to understand, just like when you wake up from a dream, that dream was not me. I was going through all that in the dream, but when you wake up from the dream, you understand that that is not true, and what you saw is also true, but that is not true. That differentiation you're able to make between a dream and when you wake up from dream. Similarly, the same person can see a distance, a little separation from what is happening in the life, and to be able to give an interpretation of it and to find solutions to it. That's how, just to give you an example, for example, somebody is going through crisis, and that person goes to another person who is very well meaning to them. That person will be able to give a better solution because they are not directly attached to the situation. They are not so emotionally invested, they are not feeling let down, they are not feeling the turmoil. So they are able to detach, they are able to see the whole situation from a slight distance. And then maybe because if they have good wisdom and understanding of what the situation is and what should be the solution, they're able to give a better solution to that, even if that solution could be that just sleep over it, don't react. But that wisdom can only come from someone who can detach themselves from the actual situation or actual turmoil, and then act wisely or think wisely. Similarly, if the situation is very overwhelmingly happy or something, so sometimes in happiness also we can rub people in the wrong way. But if we are able to detach ourselves from that situation, we will always be very steadfast, very samtav in our behavior. And that is what योग does to us. जो पुरुष संपूर्ण भूतों में सबके आत्म रूप मुझ वासुदेव को ही व्यापक देखता है और संपूर्ण भूत में मुझ वासुदेव के अंतर्गत देखता है, उनके लिए मैं अदृश्य नहीं हूँ और वह मेरे लिए अदृश्य नहीं होता, क्योंकि वह मेरे में एक ही भाव से स्थित है. So what here Krishna is saying, God is never invisible to those who are in that state of perfect tranquility and peace through this practice of yoga. इस प्रकार जो पुरुष एक ही भाव में स्थित हुआ और संपूर्ण भूतों में आत्म रूप से स्थिर हुआ मुझे सच्चिदानंदन वासुदेव को भजता है, वह योगी सब प्रकार से बढ़ता हुआ भी मेरे में ही बढ़ता है, क्योंकि उसके अनुभव में मेरे सिवा कुछ है ही नहीं. हे अर्जुन, जो योगी अपने सदृश्य से संपूर्ण भूतों में सम देखता है और सुख अथवा दुख को सम देखता है, वह योगी परम श्रेष्ठ माना गया है. So such people will not find happiness or sadness as two separate things. They will see these two as a part of same coin, and therefore will not be too much affected by either. इस प्रकार भगवान के वाक्यों को सुनकर अर्जुन बोले, हे मधुसूदन, जो ये ध्यान योग आपने समतप से कहा है, समतप भाव से कहा है, इसकी मैं मन के चंचल होने से बहुत काल तक ठहरने वाली स्त्री की स्थिति को नहीं देखता हूँ, क्योंकि हे कृष्ण, ये मन बड़ा चंचल और प्रथम स्वभाव वाला है तथा बड़ा ही दृढ़ और बलवान है. इसलिए इसे वश में करना मैं वायु की भांति अति दुष्कर मानता हूँ. इस प्रकार अर्जुन के पूछने पर श्री कृष्ण बोले, हे महाभावो. नाउ इन दिस question, Arjun has asked Sri Krishna a question which feels applicable to all of us. That he says that you have told us to keep control over our senses, keep control over our mind and our heart, and this type of dhyan yoga meditation is very, very difficult, and I think it is possible only for a few seconds for us. It is not possible for a long term, because our mind is very, very powerful, and it is very, very volatile. It just like wind, it just flows in all directions. So I find this very, very difficult, what you're saying, to controlling our mind and controlling our controlling our thoughts to be wandering around. So Krishna says, निसंदेह मन चंचल और कठिनता से वश में होने वाला है, परंतु हे कुंती पुत्र अर्जुन, अभ्यास अर्थात स्थिति के लिए बारंबार यत्न करने से और वैराग्य से वश में होता है. So what Krishna is saying, yes, absolutely, it is very, very difficult to control mind. It flows in all directions. It doesn't come in anyone's control, and definitely not for a long time. But what are the two methods Shri Krishna has explained to control it? Number one is practice, abhyas. Every single time you practice, you strengthen that particular state of being yogi. And two, vairagya. Vairagya means detachment. So practice and detach. Practicing detachment and detached practice. Both are the methods through which we can slowly and steadily reach a point where we are able to a majority of extent control our mind and stay in योग. इस पर अर्जुन बोले, योग से चलायमान हो गया है मन जिसका, ऐसी शिथिल यत्न वाला श्रद्धा युक्त पुरुष योग की स्थिति को अर्थात भगवत साक्षात्कार को ना प्राप्त होकर किस गति को प्राप्त होता है? क्या वह भगवत प्राप्ति के मार्ग में मोहित हुआ आश्रय रहित पुरुष छिन्न भिन्न बादल की भांति दोनों ओर से अर्थात भगवत प्राप्ति और सांसारिक भोगों से भ्रष्ट हुआ नष्ट तो नहीं हो जाता है? Now Arjun is asking, since this is very, very difficult to achieve, there may be a stage in between where person's mind doesn't really come in control. It comes in control, but again it goes. So in that situation, what to do? Does it mean a person will vacillate between looking for God or being in the pursuit of God and being in material pursuits? Because then that will confuse a person, and does that mean that person will be totally delusioned? They will be neither here nor there. मेरे इस संशय को संपूर्णता से छेदन करने के लिए आप ही योग हैं, क्योंकि आपके सिवाय संदेह. So he is asking Krishna, can you please explain this? Because what if somebody starts this practice and is not able to control their mind, but due to little bit of practice they have tasted it, and now they are finding little peace when they are able to, and then they are finding it so difficult to live material life. They start feeling guilty of what they are doing. So now they are in between. So what happens to them? Please explain me. इस प्रकार अर्जुन के पूछने पर श्री कृष्ण भगवान बोले, हे पार्थ, उस पुरुष का ना तो इस लोक में और ना ही परलोक में ही नाश होता है, क्योंकि हे प्यारे, कोई भी शुभ कर्म करने वाला अर्थात भगवत अर्थ कर्म करने वाले को दुर्गति को प्राप्त नहीं होता है, किंतु वह योग भ्रष्ट पुरुष पर पुण्यवानों के लोगों को अर्थात सर्वाधिक उत्तम लोगों को प्राप्त होकर उनमें बहुत वर्षों तक वास कर शुद्ध आचरण वाले श्रीमान पुरुषों के घर में जन्म लेता है, अथवा वैराग्यवान पुरुष उन लोगों में ना जाकर ज्ञानवान योगियों के ही कुल में जन्म लेता है. सो हियर कृष्णा इज सेइंग कि नथिंग इज लॉस्ट. Those who start this practice and may not be able to even perfect it, they don't become lost and they don't feel a sense of disbalance in their life. In fact, they live a little more peaceful life while doing their material pursuits, and at the end of their life they don't just go nowhere because they haven't been able to reach their perfection of yoga. So as Arjun is asking, what if somebody is not able to achieve the perfection of their yoga and they die in between? So here Krishna is saying they don't face any problem. They live their life due to the virtue of developing that stillness within them, the peace within them. They live this life peacefully while accomplishing their material pursuit, and once they die, they reach very good place where they because of doing things according to dharma, artha, karma, which means doing their duties and then earning money out of their duties and then doing the karmas that give them that success, good karmas according to their dharma. Who do this kind of life, who live this kind of life, they don't go to any wrong place. They rather go to very good places where they learn better lessons for their life, their next life, and then they take their next birth in places which are very wealthy or places where they are able to enjoy life because they have done all these good karmas. So they are born to well-meaning or well-educated or you can say very dharmic people who follow dharma, those kind of houses. So so that they are given in a way an opportunity to continue with their yoga practice that they were doing in their last birth and take it to the next level. Otherwise, people who follow vairagya and those who do not go into material pursuits and completely follow the practice and also practice the detachment, those people are born into next birth into the family of people who are extremely enlightened, and they are born in those kind of families, but those kind of births are very rare in life. So Krishna is saying ऐसा जन्म संसार में निसंदेह अति दुर्लभ है. वह पुरुष वहाँ उस पहले शरीर में साधन किए हुए बुद्धि के योग संयोग को अर्थात समतप बुद्धि योग के संस्कारों को अनायास ही प्राप्त हो जाता है, और हे करुनंदन उसके प्रभाव से वह फिर अच्छी प्रकार भगवत रूप प्राप्ति के निमित्त यत्न करता है. वह विषयों के वश में हुआ भी उस पहले के अभ्यास से ही निसंदेह भगवत की ओर आकर्षित किया जाता है, तथा समतप बुद्धि रूप योग का जिज्ञासु भी वेद में कहे हुए सकाम कर्मों के फल को उल्लंघन कर जाता है. So it is said that such people who have practiced detachment even in this life, when they leave their bodies, they are born into very, very enlightened kind of a families who may not be very materially rich according to the social norms. They may not be rich and famous and that way, but they are highly enlightened beings. They are born in such families, and those people remain aware of their previous knowledge, and though that kind of birth is very rare. He's written that kind of birth is very rare. That kind of birth is basically to continue with that learning and maybe to give back to the world. And so it's written that those kind of people are able to quickly remember their past learnings, and they are able to reach the enlightenment very, very fast. And those who are into the material pursuits, for example in this life they are born into a good family, but they are into the material pursuits very quickly. Such people who have been practicing detachment in their last life and practicing yoga at a very high level, when they take birth and they suppose are born into a very wealthy and materialistically driven family, even then they are slightly detached. Due to some reason they get detached from it, and they continue to pursue their um, 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 for example, they continue to break through the mold of this whole pursuit of achieving material success within that family too. एंड जबकि इस प्रकार मंद प्रयत्न करने वाला योगी भी परम गति को प्राप्त हो जाता है, तब क्या कहना कि अनेक जन्मों से अंतकरण की शुद्ध रूपी सिद्धि को प्राप्त हुआ। अति प्रयत्न से अभ्यास करने वाला योगी संपूर्ण पाप से अच्छी प्रकार शुद्ध होकर उस साधन के प्रभाव से परम गति को प्राप्त होता है, अर्थात परमात्मा को प्राप्त होता है। सो सच पीपल विद वेरी लिटिल एफर्ट इन देयर लाइफ आर एबल टू go into the highest level of yoga, or they become very famous for their very deep understanding of God. Maybe they become huge scholars, philosophers, and very quickly in their life they rise to those sort of identities in society, and they are able to uh, connect so deeply with God very easily in their life. That is because they have been doing this from many past lives. And generally when we see around us people that somebody so young is so knowledgeable and is able to share such pearls of wisdom which sound like as if this person has practiced learning or pursuit of spiritual knowledge for many centuries, that kind of wisdom they exudes out of them. So that is because they have been practicing this in all their previous lives, and this is probably the life in which it is culminating, and therefore they're very quickly able to recall all the knowledge that they have acquired over the previous births. क्योंकि, now this is the last shloka of this chapter, it says, क्योंकि योगी तपस्वियों से श्रेष्ठ है और शास्त्र के ज्ञान वालों से भी श्रेष्ठ माना गया है, तथा सकाम कर्म करने वालों से भी योगी श्रेष्ठ है, इसीलिए हे अर्जुन तू योगी हो। हे प्यारे, संपूर्ण योगियों में भी जो श्रद्धावान योगी मेरे में लगे हुए अंतरात्मा से मेरे को निरंतर भजता है, वह योगी मुझ में परम श्रेष्ठ मान्य है। So here in the last chapter, the last shloka of the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna is telling Arjun that all those who do penance, any kind of penance, maybe they do a lot of fast, or they do a lot of pilgrimage, or they do a lot of good deeds for the society, a lot of bhandaras and all. So all of those are called tapasvis. They are doing a tapasya, they are doing something over and over again. So he says that yogi is superior to them. Someone who's knowledgeable in reading the shastras, who's knowledgeable in reading all the books of dharma, yogi is superior to even them. And those people who are doing good karmas in life, sakam karma, those people who want to do good karmas to achieve good material success, and they are doing great good karmas, like they are opening hospitals, and they are opening schools and dharamshalas and all this they want to do because they want to earn good karmas. From even in comparison to those people, a yogi is superior. So yogi is superior to someone who has the highest knowledge of the shastras, who has the highest amount of good karmas he has earned, and highest amount of penance somebody has done. Yogi is greater than all of them. So he tells Arjuna, you become a yogi. Sampurna yon, and then he says a yogi who completely deep inside themselves sits and remembers me, he is the highest of the highest yogi. So you have understood this. With this the chapter is complete, and this is called Atma Sanyam Yoga, the 6th chapter. So in this chapter we learned what is yogi, what is yoga, and he is finally explained to Arjuna that how to achieve yoga, and then finally he compares him to all the forms of learned people, all the enlightened beings, the one who was a tapasvi, the one who are jnani, and the one who are sakam karma yogi. He says above all of these is yogi. So Arjun, you be a yogi. And I as you go back into this, as if you remind, you'll come to know there are clear methods to achieve yoga. Krishna has explained what is yoga, how to achieve it, how to go step by step for it. So I hope you will benefit from this chapter, and I have given a personal try to give as many examples as I can from my own personal life. So they are true, they are not references, they are my own truth, and I wanted to share with you all because it is very, very important to state the truth as it is, so that you know it is possible and you can also bring it into your life. And if you're already practicing yoga, my gratitude to you, because you're being a very peaceful, loving, and a very pleasant existence in this world. And that is what is the purpose of each one of us. With this, thank you so much for joining me on this journey of learning Bhagavad Gita chapter wise. I am so excited and I'm looking forward to bringing the chapter 7 to all of you. And that chapter 7 is called Gyan Vigyan Yog, and I can't wait to share that. It's a very, very short chapter. It has only 30 shlokas, so hopefully the next video will be much shorter. Thank you for bearing with me with these long videos, because I wanted to narrate every single shloka to you in Hindi, of course, and to give my own personal understanding for those who don't fully understand Hindi, and they can also don't feel restricted to understand Bhagavad Gita. It's fun, it's easy, and it needs a little bit of practice, just like yoga. But once you get on this journey, you will love it, and you will feel very, very light, very pleasant, and very blissful. And this blissfulness is not going to be short lived, not going to be intermittent. It will continue from this life to all your next lives. So, with all this, thank you for joining me in this journey. And let's end this video with these two powerful Mahamantras. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.